what trend do you see? We just discussed trends and watch collectors at your panel. But what trends do you see in the industry right now?
I mean, again, I see smaller watches, right? Like
when you say small, is it going down to 28?
No. I think like just smaller in terms of, you know, like I wear 30, 35, 36 and it's fine, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done that 4 or 5 years ago for some reason. Yeah. And so I do think, you know, smaller watches definitely is becoming a trend in the sense where people don't really want the 45 millimeter, 44 millimeter, 46 mil, like, you know, like, because that was a thing like 15 years ago, right? Like really, really oversized watches. And so I think that trend is going away and it's going towards, you know, sub 42 millimeters, sub 41, sub 40, sub 39.
Yeah.
That's where the trend is heading to. And I think a lot of that is also forged by Asian demand as well.
Yeah.
Asians just in general have smaller wrists.
Yeah.
And so, and we see that as well at Wristcheck, right? Like it's easier to sell a 39, 38 millimeter in Asia than it is in the US.
Right.
In the US, a lot of people still like 41, 42, right? It's usually just the tastemakers or the small niche communities are going into smaller watches, but the majority is still buying sports watches, I would say. And I would say that this trend will probably continue for a while.
Yeah, I'm moving in that direction myself.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Smaller watches.
But it's not your first watch.
No.
Exactly.
It's not my first watch. It's just, but for me, it was more nothing to do with the trends, to be honest. It was more about comfort.
Yeah, comfort and size, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And people forget, like, I mean, the notorious B.I.G., one of the most legendary rappers ever, like, he's not a small dude.
Yeah.
He wore 36. Right, 36 presidentials, like day dates, and so it's like it's not really about the size. It's about what fits you, and what's comfortable at the end of the day.
I agree. So how does it work at Wristcheck? Tell us a little bit about it, because pre-owned watches to begin with, from what I've understood, and pre-owned watches, at least in India, till a few years ago, used to be a taboo. Again, a topic we discussed that I don't know the karma this watch is coming with, and so on. But that has changed a lot in India. So is it the same here across Asia?
Of course. I think China, if anything, like they had that taboo first, like in the watch world, right? Because they started getting into watches slightly earlier as well. And I think that, you know, it's a taboo that changed for a multitude of reasons. One, a lot of the watches that, you know, Asian, especially new buyers of watches, they want trendy stuff, which is sports watches.
Yeah.
And you can't just walk into a Patek, an AP, or a Rolex and leave with a Daytona, a Royal Oak, or a Nautilus. And so partly why they have accepted it more is because of lack of choice. There's no option, right? That's one thing. And for the other thing that I see is very, very clear is actually sneakers and shoes.
Yeah.
They were actually the driver for that.
True.
Because if you look in China, like, you know, I grew up there, like, even just 5-6 years ago, even now, people are wearing Yeezys, people are wearing Air Jordan 1s, Travis Scotts, all of this stuff. The only way to buy that in China, basically, or in Asia, is via platforms like GOAT, StockX, in China, Poison. And they're all technically secondary, right? They haven't been worn, but they're not. You're not the person that bought it from the store, basically. And so I think that is kind of the precursor to what made it more acceptable for watches.
Yeah.
And so I do think that it happened a lot faster than I expected, but that was because of COVID. People were stuck at home. They wanted to buy something nice that they could play with at home, that could be easily shipped, that was small, you know. And so I do think that COVID sped up the inevitable in terms of this interest. And for Gen Z as well, like, I mean, you know, like the Apple Watch, in my opinion, was the biggest contributor to the watch space. But because
at least everyone had something on their wrist.
Exactly. And you asked about how Wristcheck works.
How does Wristcheck work?
And so with Wristcheck, I mean, it's we're a watch platform, obviously, right? As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 pillars. It's transparency. So with transparency, with us, we're consignment only, right? Buyers know what sellers net. Sellers know what buyers pay. We make 6 to 12% on each transaction, and it's fully transparent. Everyone knows exactly how much we're making. Buyers and sellers are anonymous to each other, and you just trust Wristcheck as a platform because we have custodianship of the product. We have an incredible in-house watchmaking team. You've probably seen Peter on social media.
Yeah, I actually met him yesterday. We had a long conversation.
And so we check all the watches obviously extremely thoroughly. We have condition reports. And so transparency for us is key. So if there's a watch that we have on our platform with a scratch over here or imperfection here, we let you know. We tell you that this is there, because in my opinion, that is the right way to do business, right? Second pillar is inclusivity. As I mentioned, in the past it was, still is, better now, but 10 years ago it was at least extremely intimidating. 5 years ago it was extremely intimidating for a young person to enter a watch store, a watch boutique. And so with us, it doesn't matter if you walk into our store with Crocs on or with shorts.
That's what I found very interesting, Austen. You have the online portal, but you also have something offline.
Yeah.
Because call me a traditionalist, but I like to see my watch before I'm going to buy it.
Of course.
I'm still not, into going online and buying a watch for $15,000. Yeah, it's not something I would do.
Exactly. I mean, for us, having both is so important, because I think luxury is the only industry where an omni-channel experience is possible. Like a really good omni experience is only possible really in the luxury world, because it's basically it's a positive flywheel. You're feeding people from online to offline, offline to online. And I think the amazing thing for us having offline is the inclusivity part. We're able to host events. We're able to meet our community. And at the same time, if you're consigning a watch, a very expensive watch, you would also feel safer if there was a physical space.
For sure.
If you're a first-time buyer of a watch, I mean, for us, another reason why we have offline locations, we carry, over 100 brands, right? In terms of over 100 brands are consigned to us. If you come to our store, you can see all of them.
Yeah.
You can try them on. Yeah. And so for me, that's still a very important part, because I remember when I was getting into watches, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, once you get into it more, maybe you don't need to anymore, right? Like if you have a few Royal Oaks, you know how they wear, whatever, then it doesn't matter. Then you just buy them online without even needing to try it on. And so that's also why online is very important. Right. And so it's really a mixture of the two, but I do think that it's very, very crucial for us to have offline locations in markets that we find are important to at least to our business.
Great. Austen, you literally fell into the watch world.
Yes.
It happened by chance, I think in Shanghai when you were in China. A very interesting story. So what would your advice be to somebody who wants to start their watch collecting journey, who doesn't have maybe even the accessibility to the Holy Trinity or to extremely expensive watches, but just wants to kick off their journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously read, right?
Yeah.
I think there's more online resources now than ever before.
Also offline.
And offline.
Yeah.
And
I'm more of a traditionalist, so I like reading my content.
Offline is more reliable.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I agree.
Right. Offline is more reliable, but online is more accessible.
True.
For the average person, because you just need an internet connection, and it's free most of the time. Yeah. And so I do think right now is obviously read, educate yourself. This is an industry where you can't really go to school, right? You can't go to college and be like, oh, I want to learn about horology. Yeah. Like, you can be a watchmaker, but being a watchmaker is very different to being a journalist or being, in the secondary space or being in the industry. It's completely different, right? A watchmaker will have no idea what market prices are.
True.
Someone selling watches might have no idea how to make a watch, right? Yeah. And so they're very, very different, even though it's the same industry. And so I would say that the only way to really excel is to really be passionate, because you kind of have to teach yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had to do, right? Like I'm just very lucky very fortunate that I discovered my passion at a very young age, and I decided to pursue it. Yeah. Whereas, I know a lot of people don't ever find a passion in their life, but, I'm just very lucky that I did. But for people who do have that passion, honestly, there's more tools available now than ever to start to create a name for yourself for free, right? Yeah. If you can't afford watches, go to boutiques. Ask to try it on, take photos of them, share your thoughts. That's what I did in the beginning, right? And so it's like there's very little barriers now compared to what there was before. Yeah. And that's also why, you have people like myself that are first generation watch entrepreneurs or whatever coming out from different places all around the world because it's more accessible. And so I see it as an opportunity, right? Like, I mean, Ben Clymer was one of the first that was not first generation in the space.
What I think is the most interesting part of Wristcheck is the transparency, which is something we don't get to see too much in the industry. It was super chatting with you, very inspiring story, very, very refreshing. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Karishma. Thank you.
Thank
and I can't wait to visit you guys in India.
You have to. You
I
must.
will. I have to. I have to.
See
Thank
you.
you.